Hello and welcome to another edition of The Muscle and the Mouth. I am the mouth, Bryan Houston. That's about all I'm good for. The muscle and the brains behind all that we talk about when we talk about health and fitness and nutrition is Kelly Hitchcock, who is the owner and operator of KH Fitness in Tyler, Texas. Has been a fitness expert for 30 years or so now. And Kelly, once again, we are talking about losing weight, getting in shape. And I know that you talk to a number of groups constantly about this topic. It's a topic that's never going to go away in popularity and interest. It's also going to be one that people are going to constantly struggle with. And you've kind of boiled this thing down in a different way, a different approach this time, taking it and breaking it into three parts: the secret, the facts, and the problem. First of all, thanks for being on with us.
Oh, thanks again for having me.
All right, and so break this down for us and explain what you're talking about when you talk about the secret, the facts, and the problem as it relates to losing weight and getting in shape.
Well, there is so much misinformation out there. I want to try to make it as easy as possible. And so in doing some of my presentations, I have come up with a way that I break it down in a PowerPoint presentation. And like you said, it's titled The Secret, the Facts, and the Problem. And what I start off with is the secret. Most people think it's a special workout program or a special food combination, but the reality is the secret is we're only as good as how many calories we're expending at rest. I mean, you think if you work out 1 hour a day, that leaves 23 other hours in the day. So the secret is how can we increase our metabolic rate so that we keep our metabolism elevated for those other 23 hours. And so the secret is our metabolism. The metabolism is basically represents the sum total of the living cell's energy production and the energy utilization reaction. So it makes up our caloric intake, caloric storing, caloric expenditure. But the three primary components to our resting metabolic rate is the amount of calories that our body expends at rest, the thermic effect of food, and the thermic effect of feeding. Now, if you look at our resting metabolic rate, 70% of the calories that you and I burn in a 24-hour period will be at rest. Okay, the amount of calories expended within that 70% is dependent upon how much lean body mass we have. So the more muscle mass you have, the more calories you burn. And I always kind of use a car analogy. If you've got a V8 burns a lot more calories than a four-cylinder. Now, the four-cylinder would be someone that doesn't have a lot of muscle mass, and the V8 would represent someone who has a lot of muscle mass. So, we want to increase our lean body mass. Now, this goes for men and women. The one thing I always want to let women know is that you have to keep in mind that 1 pound of fat takes up 3 times as much space as 1 pound of muscle. Muscle's really small and really dense. And the amount of hypertrophy or the amount of growth that women have when they do any type of resistance exercise is going to be limited because the testosterone levels are a lot lower in women than they are in men. So when a man and a woman start a 6-week program, they're not going to see as much size gain as the men will gain, and that's just because of hormones. So don't be afraid of going into the gym and lifting weights. I mean, you need to do that if you're a woman, not only for the increase in lean body mass, but also for the bone density building properties of weight training. So that's very important. So 70% is our resting metabolic rate. Now, there's a term called the thermic effect of physical activity. What that includes is our daily activity, walking out to your car, going to pick the kids up at school, doing basic chores around the house. And then if you're on an exercise program, that's going to account for that too. Mm-hmm. And that makes up around 30%. So there's 10% left. The 10% left comes from the thermic effect of food. Anytime you eat a meal, let's say it's 300 calories. Mm-hmm. You're gonna 10% of that is going to come from just the digestion. So out of that 300 calories, your body will burn 30 calories just to digest the meal.
Okay.
If you were to combine a protein, a carb, and a fat together, due to that combination, it's more complex, then it's going to even require more calories to digest it. So it's always good to make sure that when we eat a meal, that it includes a protein, a carb, and a fat. In other words, you wouldn't want to just eat a banana. You might want to have a banana with maybe a little bit of some natural peanut butter on it. You could do eggs, but you would do that with a piece of toast. So doing it like that is going to increase the thermic effect of the food.
Okay, and because one of the misconceptions when people go on a diet, you'll see them and they'll decide that all I'm going to have for lunch is going to be a salad. And so all they have is greens and tomatoes and vegetables and so forth, but probably are going to neglect protein when they do that.
Yeah, I think that when most people are eating a salad for lunch, they're trying to avoid food. They're trying to avoid calories, and you can't do that. And especially, I'm glad you mentioned salad, because salad is actually it's considered a negative calorie. I mean, if you were just doing lettuce and let's say onion and tomatoes, that's a roughage, and it requires so much energy to digest the salad that you'll actually burn more calories than the worth of the salad. So if you eat 100 calories of lettuce, you're going to burn about 105 calories to digest it. So it's really a negative food. So you can have all the salad you want. The problem we run into with salads is that we put salad dressing on it. And, some of the salad dressings have 36 to 40 grams of fat for a tablespoon. So you could have just as well eaten a hamburger, really. So salads are good, but you need to eat that in addition to your meal.
Right.
And you want to use the low fat, or you want to use like a vinaigrette type salad dressing so that we can negate the calories that you would get from a regular dressing.
Okay, so but my point being, when you eat that, when people sit down to just eat that salad, you'd actually be doing yourself more good to also have some lean protein with it, say chicken breast or some kind of lean beef or something like that with the salad. It actually may be more beneficial to you than just eating the salad.
It would be a whole lot more beneficial, and the reason why is because the chicken and the let's say the rice or the whole wheat bread, that's going to feed the muscle. It's like throwing another log on the fire. I mean, if you throw a salad on the fire, it's not going to burn real hot. And so your lean body mass, the salad doesn't feed the muscle, so you actually the muscle will atrophy a little bit, and it'll lower your metabolic rate. And that's not what we're trying to do. Now, people have this false sense of success because the weight starts going down. But the problem is, a lot of that is that you're losing muscle mass, and as you lose muscle mass, you lower your metabolic rate. And, we can only restrict ourselves from food for only so long a period of time. I mean, you're going to have to eat. You're going to have to learn what is better choices, and you're going to have to learn that there's no forbidden foods. If you can have pizza, you can have hamburgers. We just got to learn how to develop better patterns of eating, better habits, so that those things are, we do those on special treats rather than doing them every day. But yeah, you've got to make sure that you're eating meals that encompass the whole macronutrient profile. You need to have a protein, a carb, and a fat with every meal.
Okay. All right, continue now. We're talking about the secret, the facts, and the problem.
Well, the secret is our metabolism. I mean, a program without a concern for muscle is a program designed to fail from the beginning. You've got to be eating in a way, and you need to be exercising in a way that increases your resting metabolic rate. So the secret is your muscle. Now, the facts, there's several things that I talk about with the facts. One of the things, intake, you are what you eat. If you come in and you weigh, let's just say someone comes in and they weigh 230 pounds and they say that they only eat 1,500 calories a day, that's just not true. Now, I'm not saying that they're being dishonest. I just don't think that we're aware of how many calories are in certain meals, and that's why it's always good to keep a food log. So you are what you eat. Your body right now is reflecting a certain amount of calories. If you weigh 230 pounds, then you're eating enough to support 230 pounds.
To paraphrase Bill Parcells, you are what the mirror says you look like.
Yeah,
right?
You are what your record says you are. You're exactly right. Okay, expenditure. Okay, you can never outwork your mouth. Okay,
you can't outrun it either.
You can't. You can outrun it. You can't outstair step it. You might as well give that up. Okay. I've tried that already, and it didn't work. It's too easy to eat 300 calories, and it's very, very hard to burn 300 calories.
I saw the comparison the other day that somebody could sit down and eat a hamburger. It'd be 1,500 calories. You could down that in 5 minutes, and then it would take you over an hour to burn that off.
If not more. Yeah, 1,500 calories is a lot. So expenditure, you've got to, everybody will have a food quota, And we help people with that, determining what you need. Imagine it as trying to figure out how much gas your tank will hold. And we can do that by checking lean body mass. And then once we have that number, as long as you stay within that food quota, we can guide that, or we can prescribe a nutritional plan that will help you to start feeding off of the fat and building the muscle mass, which is the key. And that's our next fact, muscle. Muscle makes up 60 to 75% of your metabolism. So we have to increase our lean body mass. Another fact, nutrition, balanced meals. Every meal you eat, breakfast, mini meals, lunch, and dinner, they all need to be composed of a complex carbohydrate. I'm going to give you an example, like rice or potatoes or yams, oatmeal, whole wheat bread, whole wheat tortillas. It needs to have lean proteins, chicken, turkey, lean red meat, turkey bacon, egg whites. You can use protein shakes also. And also you need to include fat. Now, for women in general, you need to make sure that each one of your meals has around 5 to 7 grams of fat, no more than that. Okay. Men in general, around 7 to 10 grams of fat. Now, depending on your goals, that's where we'll come in and narrow that down a little bit. But it needs to have some fat. Now, usually you don't have to add fat to your meals because fat piggybacks off of your protein. You have 4 ounces of chicken, you're going to be getting around 3 grams of fat. Okay. So there's no need to be stressed out about adding fat to your diet. Yeah. I mean, you're going to get plenty.
It's going to find you.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about adding it. And then the last fact is exercise. You become what you do. Let's just say that you're someone who is a runner. You run long distance. Well, your body is going to take on a certain body type because your body adapts to become what it is that you do. And to become efficient at running, you don't need a lot of extra muscle mass, because remember that muscle mass burns a lot of calories. When you run, the adaptation is to shrink the muscles up so that you don't burn as many calories, so that you can go further and further. So that's very, very important that we set up our program to be as specific as we can for what our goals are. There's a principle called the SAID principle. It's specific adaptation to imposed demand. Like I said, you become what you do. Some of the adaptations to aerobic training, you increase your heart, your cardiac, and your pulmonary output, so you get better at delivering oxygen and oxygenated blood, and also fuel to the working muscle. You increase mitochondria and capillaries. Now, mitochondria and capillaries, they're like a little, I guess, a carburetor to the motor. They allow the air and the fuel mixture to come into the motor. So the more mitochondria and capillaries we can produce, then the more oxygen, the more fuel is available to those smaller muscles. When you do aerobic training, you increase the slow twitch fiber recruitment. Now, the slow twitch fibers are the fibers closest to the bone. So you're not going to really see, if you're looking for a visible change, let's say in your legs or in your glutes, you're really not going to get that from long distance running, because it's to shrink the muscles up. So you actually might have a softer look. And that's just because it's shrinking up the fast twitch fibers and your body is focusing more on the slow twitch fibers. So, again, training is specific. If you're getting ready for a run, you're wanting to do a 5K, a 10K, something like that, then aerobic training is what you need to do. Now, if you're trying to increase lean body mass, increase your resting metabolic rate, increase your strength, your muscular endurance, build bone density, then strength training is one thing that you want to focus on. Some of the adaptations to strength training is it increases the size of the fast twitch fibers. Now, the fast twitch fibers are located closest to the skin. So if you're trying to get fit and you're also going for that tone, lean look, then the fast twitch fibers are what we need to focus on. Now, the way we do our training here is that when you're doing your strength training, you're minimizing the rest in between each set. I'd say anywhere from 40 seconds to 1 minute. Now, the great thing is that not only is it building muscle mass, but you're also strengthening your cardiovascular system just like you would in running. So you're getting the best of both worlds. I mentioned earlier the bone density. I mean, stress on the body puts stress on the bone, and it makes the bones a lot more dense. Increased proprioception. Proprioception are these little sensors within our muscles, and what they do is they help us with our balance. And so as you have a older population that you see more and more coming into the gym, proprioception training is one thing that we really work on in the older community. Some exercises you can do is like balancing on one leg, just as simple as that. Standing on a pillow. If you're in the gym, we have certain products that we use, these little discs that are full of air that you might stand on. We also have, it's called a BOSU. It's kind of a half circle type apparatus that you can stand on. So those are some things that are really good. And, working out with free weights, being that you have to stand with your feet on the floor and just doing a curl, you'd really be surprised, but your body has a lot of proprioception going on without us knowing about it. Now, the proprioceptors, it's a subconscious movement. It's something that we're really not thinking about. It's something that our body does automatically. And so the more you put yourself in these unstable situations, the better proprioception you're going to have. And some of the latest studies that I'm really interested in right now is increased cognitive functioning. They've done studies, I think up probably the last 2 years. All of the studies on the brain have been done using aerobic type training and seeing how that affects the brain. But here over the past 2 years, they've been doing a lot more studies with resistance exercise. Okay. And some of the information's really it's something it's advantageous to people with Parkinson's and Alzheimer's.
Really?
And they're actually using it more now because both of those are neurological issues. And what they've shown is they took a group of people that were 60 years old that had done no weight training. And this was a group that either were kind of pre-Parkinson's or pre-Alzheimer's. There were some signs. And they had them start a strength training program. After the first 6 months of training, there was a 10 to 15% increase in neurons in the limbic area of the brain, and this is an area specifically in the hippocampus of the brain, and this is the area of the brain that's associated with learning and understanding and also some of our balance. And so that process is called neurogenesis. It's the creation of new neurons. So weight training actually has an effect on increasing the amount of neurons in our brain. And so the more you work out and stay healthy like that, the better your cognitive skills are going to be. And I'm not saying it's going to prevent Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, but it's really going to help out a lot. And they're really using it now with people who already have it. So it's something that's really good and something that's I think important for us all to know. If we can be more proactive and do that now rather than being reactive, then who knows how much longer we can go without. If we have potentially run the risk of inheriting that, hopefully we can prolong that from happening. So, and then again, the strength training, of course, with the increased in resting metabolic rate. The reason why as we get older, we go, oh, I'm 40 years old and I can tell that I'm gaining a lot more fat and I'm eating less food. It's not necessarily, that's not a reflection of your age. That's a reflection of our lifestyle. We usually get busy from our late 20s on to our 40s and getting sedentary like that and working behind a desk. And, we don't do much physical labor anymore. It's almost imperative that we all try to get on some type of exercise program just so we can help to slow down the muscle loss. Because we're going to lose it because the hormone level starts to drop. But strength training can really boost the hormone levels too. So it's just a win-win situation all around.
Okay, so now we get to the problem.
Oh, the problem. That's hard. And there's a favorite quote that I use a lot, G.K. Chesterton. It's not that we can't see the solution, it's that we can't see the problem. And the problem is human nature. And we use that word a lot, but what does that mean? And an analogy I like to use, because I see things in analogies or metaphors, but one night I was at my wife's aunt and uncle's, and we were sitting out on the back patio, and they were playing games. And I don't like playing games, but I was kind of mesmerized by the bug light, the little bug zapper they had, and I just kept noticing these bugs flying into this zapper, and I had kind of said something out loud that I wrote down actually and went home and looked it up. And I said, why are these bugs? Why are they committing suicide by flying into this light? And it was actually pretty neat because when I went home and I looked that up, I was just kind of interested in it. That was really the wrong question to ask. It's not why did the bugs commit suicide by flying into the flame. The question is, why would the bugs have a brain that's been hardwired that makes them fly toward a light.
Right.
And there you get the answer. You know, the bug's brain was hardwired in a much different world. I mean, there was no lights here on Earth. I mean, at least, you know, if it wasn't for a fire or something like that. But so the bug's brain was hardwired in a world that they use celestial lights to navigate their world. They can fly up about 10 to 15 feet off the ground, and they use certain stars, and they navigate their little 1 mile area. You know, it's only until recent times that lights have come down low enough that they can actually fly into it. Mm-hmm. So they're still attracted to these primal desires. And it was funny because when I read that, I had this epiphany that, you know, we do that. You know, why? And you could look at it like, why do we do things that are not in our best interest? You know we shouldn't do better. And I think it's Romans 7:15 where Paul said, I do not understand what I do, for what I want to do, I don't do, but what I hate, I do. Mm-hmm. Well, we are still running on these primal hardwiring that we've had in our brain from a barren world. You know, it's really only until recent times that we can walk probably 100 steps and be to 2 to 3 different restaurants.
Right.
So our brain is hardwired to consume. And those ancient ancestors that we had that were successful at finding food and procreating, they live within all of us. And so now here we are, we've created a world that is really based on those primal desires. And we haven't learned yet, just like the moth flying into the flame, we have not learned how to control that yet. And so our hardwired part of our brain is wired for salt, fat, and sugar. I mean, that we have a positive neurological response when we find salt, fat, and sugar. So it should be no surprise when you look at your fast food restaurants or any of your restaurants, what do you find the majority of those meals are made up with?
Salt, fat, and sugar.
Yes. And so it's so interesting because what happens is when we consume salt, fat, and sugar, we automatically release a hormone in our neurotransmitter in our brain called dopamine. And dopamine is it's a neurotransmitter that it plays a major role in reward and motivation behavior. And whatever we do that elicits the most dopamine is something that we're pretty much sure to look for again. We're sure to seek it out. And that's why, you know, if you have, you'll see families where it seems like everybody in the family is an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. Well, what happens is genetically, from a biological perspective, their brain tends to elicit more dopamine when alcohol is present. When you see people that are morbidly obese, when you look at their brain, when they consume fat, salt, and sugar, you cannot tell the difference in that brain versus the brain that is doing cocaine. Mm-hmm. It elicits the same neurotransmitter into the same area. So, you know, that's something that we're faced with is we've got to understand that we are hardwired for those nutrients, and we've got to learn how to control it. Now, that's the hard part. And when you look at what the business that we're in, we're always in the business of like telling you about how to do a workout program or trying to get you on a good nutritional program. But really, we've got to take a step backwards. And I always tell people that personal awareness precedes personal transformation. Before we can transform ourselves, we really got to step back and we've got to start taking notes about why we do what we do and understand the triggers. I mean, we all have triggers and we don't realize it, but when we're bored or when we're tired or when we're angry, there are things that we go to help alleviate that pain. I think it was Freud, he said, humans are always seeking pleasure to avoid pain. Mm-hmm. And the thing that will allow us to avoid that pain is if we can get dopamine. And the thing with food is it's cheap, it's abundant, it's legal, and it's completely socially acceptable. So that tends to be the thing that we go to. And also these patterns that we develop, you know, it's not newly developed. These are patterns that were developed in our youth. You know, anytime that we won the soccer game, we got a Coke. Or if you did good on a test, you know, you go out to eat. Church on Sunday, you go out to eat. And what you're doing is in highly emotional situations, you're pairing that with food. And so you create this neurological pathway that becomes hardwired in the subconscious. So this isn't a conscious decision. before we can even think about where we're going to go to eat, there's already the workings in our brain that we're going to go eat. All we do is consciously decide where we're going.
Right.
So becoming aware of that. Now, it's too hard to try to explain all of it in just a little podcast, but I can tell you there's something you can look up, and it's called the ABCs of behavioral modification. And the A stands for awareness of the antecedents or the triggers. So become aware of that trigger. Recognize right now I'm bored and I'm going to do this.
Okay.
Or I'm angry and I'm going to do this. Okay. B stands for the behavior. So what is this? Is it I'm going to get food? Is it I'm going to get something to drink? Am I grabbing a cigarette? And then C stands for the consequence. Think about the consequences of the behavior. And is the behavior really worth it? And then you start an internal dialogue, because, this is an inside job. This isn't, I can give you the information, but really this takes a lot of self-work and discipline and awareness and honesty. You've got to be at a point of readiness for this to work. And, what I'm hoping is just by bringing awareness to this, we can take more of a proactive approach rather than, facing the fact that now I'm diabetic, or I've got to go in for a stent, or, I'm having heart surgery. We want to try to get you already in the mindset to where you're thinking about these things and being proactive, and we can cut this off before any of these complications occur.
Good stuff, Kelly. If anybody wants to know more about this or talk to you more at length about this, how can they get in touch with you?
I think the best way is probably to go on our Facebook page. It's KH Fitness. If you will just, you can friend us there. And we have an ongoing dialogue on our page. And we can even do things in private if you feel more comfortable with that. We've also, I mentioned to you earlier, we're doing a Post Your Lunch Monday. And I have a lot of people that are taking pictures and posting their lunch, and then also including the ingredients. And what a lot of my clients have been doing is, what do you call that, where you do a snap? There's like a way to take a picture of your page. So you take a picture of that meal and the recipe, and you have that saved in your photos. Okay. So people are doing that too. But I would do that. You can go to my Kelly Hitchcock Facebook page. You can go on there. And you can send me messages through that, or you can even call us here at the gym, which is the phone number is 903-581-0404, and that would be a good way to get a hold of us.
Good deal, Kelly. Thanks very much. We appreciate it as always. Great information, and we'll continue this dialogue.
Okay, thanks, Brian.
Kelly Hitchcock, The Muscle and the Mouth. I'm Bryan Houston. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.